You know those haunted houses you see on ghost shows where investigators walk through confidently with their flashlights, daring the darkness to make a sound? Now imagine one so cursed, so hostile, that even the professionals, the one who've seen it all, turned and ran. These are the homes where equipment fails, voices scream through empty rooms, and unseen hands reach out from the walls. The Monroe Demon House in Hartford City, Indiana. It started like every other investigation. A team of ghost hunters entered an old house in Indiana called the Monroe House, a place whispered to be cursed, but within minutes, something in the basement made them bolt. Cameras were dropped, equipment left behind. No one wanted to go back inside. In that basement, there was a crawl space hidden behind a sealed door. Locals said the air inside was thick and metallic, and that strange growling sounds could be heard even from the street. Now, when investigators entered, they reported hearing whispers coming from the walls, and one of them claimed to see a shadowy figure crouched in the corner. Later, bones were allegedly found in that crawl space, small, broken, and human. No one ever confirmed where they came from. Now, during a later investigation, two well-known paranormal investigators spent 72 hours inside the house. They described seeing orbs moving on their own, feeling cold spots rush through their bodies, and watching doors slam with no one near them. One investigator admitted that the house made him physically ill. Locals say if you walk by at night, you can actually still see the upstairs window glowing faintly, even though the power was cut off years ago. The Poplar Hill Nanny House in Hillsborough, North Carolina. Now, it was supposed to be a peaceful new beginning. In 2014, journalist and musician Tom Maxwell and his wife, Brooke, found what seemed like their dream home, a beautiful, historic two-story in Hillsborough, North Carolina. Now, locals called it Nanny, but almost from the moment they unpacked their boxes, the house began to turn against them. Brooke was the first to notice the strange things happening. She said it started with the feeling that someone was standing behind her, watching her. Then one night, she woke up, paralyzed with fear, to see a tall, hooded figure leaning over her bed. Its arms were unnaturally long, its hands thin and bone-like. It just stared at her, and then all of a sudden, it was gone. Now, from that moment on, their dream home became a nightmare. Doors had been locked, they were found open in the morning. Footsteps would creak along the hallway upstairs when everyone was downstairs. The house had a heartbeat. It breathed at night. Tom tried to dismiss it. Old houses make noises, right? He told himself that over and over and over again, but soon even he couldn't explain what they were actually seeing. One afternoon, a glass flew off the kitchen counter and shattered in front of them. Now, on another night, a door slammed so hard it cracked the frame in a room no one had entered all day. Then came the scratches. Brooke stepped into the shower one morning only to cry out in pain as long red welts appeared across her back, right before Tom's eyes. It looked like something invisible had clawed her. And, they both basically just stood frozen in shock. Now, after that, they actually began to see them, the apparitions. Now, Tom called them the Spook Parade. A woman in a 19th century bonnet appeared at the top of the stairs. A gray mist shaped like a man hovered by their daughter's room. Sometimes they'd catch sight of shadowy figures gliding silently from one wall to another and disappearing through them. Now, desperate, they brought in local paranormal investigators, but the team didn't last long. One man claimed that as soon as he entered the house, his equipment stopped working and his chest tightened as if someone was pressing against him. He described feeling a freezing breath against his neck, then hearing a voice whisper, "Leave now." Another investigator, a woman, ran out of the back room crying, saying something had brushed her hand in the dark. None of them ever came back. The Maxwells tried every form of protection they could think of: prayers, sage, salt lines across doorways. Tom even sprinkled salt along the baseboards and window frames, saying, if the house wants to be evil, fine, but it's not taking us with it. But the activity only got worse. Cold air would pour out from beneath doors, and the smell of perfume, old and powdery, filled the hallways at night. The family's dog would bark furiously at corners of the room where nothing stood, and the longer they stayed, the sicker they became. Headaches, fatigue, constant dread. After 9 agonizing months, the Maxwells couldn't take it anymore. They packed up in the middle of the night and left the house behind. Tom later said, "We didn't move out, we escaped." Now, to this day, the house still stands. Locals swear that even now, if you drive by late at night, you might see a light flicker on in an upstairs window, even though no one lives there. The Ammon's Demon House, this is in Gary, Indiana. Now, this isn't just another haunted house story. This is one that left police officers, priests, and social workers traumatized. The year was 2011. LaToya Ammons and her 3 children moved into a modest rental home on Carolina Street in Indiana. Now, it looked perfectly ordinary, but it would soon be called one of the most terrifying true demonic cases in modern modern history. It started with flies. Now in the dead of winter, thick black flies swarmed around the porch, clustering on windows and doors. No matter how many they actually hurt, they kept coming back. Then came the sounds: footsteps on the basement stairs, heavy breathing in empty rooms, and doors slamming themselves shut. One night, LaToya's mother, Rosa Campbell, woke up to a dark shadow pacing in her bedroom. She said it felt like someone was standing over her, staring at her. It was pure evil. Now, what happened next pushed the story into legend. LaToya's children began to change. They'd talk to things that weren't there. They'd growl in deep voices that didn't sound human, and one day, in front of medical staff, one of her sons reportedly walked backwards up a wall, then flipped over and landed on his feet. Witnesses, including a hospital nurse and a DCS worker, confirmed what they saw. Priests were called in, exorcisms were performed, police officers who investigated claimed they heard footsteps echoing in the basement when no one was actually inside. Now, one officer's recorder malfunctioned, then began playing distorted screams when replayed later. When renowned paranormal investigator Zach Bagans heard about the case, he bought the house outright to investigate it himself. But from the moment his team arrived, things went horribly wrong. Crew members fell sick, cameras, stopped for no reason. One investigator collapsed, claiming he felt something enter his body. He described a very heaviness in the room, like the air itself was pressing down. He said he saw shadowy figures darting across the hallways, and once, something unseen slammed the door with such force that the actual hinges bent. After documenting everything he could, Bagans made a shocking decision. He had the house demolished, completely torn down, claiming it was too dangerous to remain standing. Whatever's in there, he said, should never have a chance to escape. Even skeptics couldn't deny that something unexplainable happened there. Police reports, social worker testimonies, and church records all confirm strange occurrences. And locals say after the demolition, nothing will grow on that lot. No grass, no weeds, nothing. The land is still empty today. A quiet patch of dirt surrounded by chain link fence, and residents swear they still hear voices at night drifting through the air where the house once stood. The Smurl haunting in West Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania. For over a decade, the Smurl family lived in a nightmare that blurred the line between haunting and hell itself. From 1974 to 1989, Jack and Janet Smurl claimed their quiet family home was infested by something inhuman. It started with knocking sounds, flickering lights, and the stench of rotting flesh, but soon the attacks became physical. Their dog was thrown across a room, their beds would shake violently in the middle of the night. Janet said she was grabbed, scratched, and even attacked by something she couldn't see. Now, when famed demonologist Ed and Lorraine Warren investigated, they described the case as one of the darkest they'd ever faced. Now, during their time there, doors slammed so hard the hinges bent and mirrors cracked spontaneously. Some paranormal researchers who visited the home reportedly refused to spend the night. One priest called it something beyond demonic. Eventually, the Smurls moved, but the house remained, and neighbors still claim they hear screams echoing from inside when the wind actually slows down. Balicanin House in Scotland. Now, long before ghost hunting TV shows existed, there was the Balicanin House, a 19th century mansion so feared it was called the most haunted house in Scotland. Now, the story began with Major Robert Stewart, who lived there in the 1800s. He believed in reincarnation, and he was convinced he'd return as a dog after his passing. Now, to prevent that, he reportedly unalived his own dogs so no other spirit could use them as vessels, which is insane. Now, after his demise, locals said the dogs came back for revenge. Guests heard barking in empty halls, felt cold noses kind of brush against their legs, and saw shadowy shapes moving at night. Now, when Britain's Society for Physical Research investigated, basically in the 1890s, their investigators were overwhelmed. They documented apparitions of a ghostly nun, phantom footsteps, and sudden crushing cold that forced them out of rooms. One researcher quit mid-investigation, calling the energy inside unbearable. Another refused to ever discuss what she witnessed. By the 1930s, Balicanin House was abandoned, and when it burned to the ground in the 1960s, locals said the fire glowed an unnatural green. So even in ruin, people still avoid walking across the land where it stood. These aren't your average haunted houses. These are places where reality seems to break, where investigators, priests, and skeptics all reach their limit. From basements full of bones to Indiana to ghostly nuns in Scotland, these stories remind us that sometimes there really is something in the dark that doesn't want to be found. So the next time you watch a paranormal investigation and think, I could handle that. Eastern State Penitentiary in Philadelphia. Now, imagine standing in a long, cold corridor, the paint peeling from the walls, the silence so heavy it presses against your chest. Suddenly, you hear footsteps echoing, but when you turn, no one's there. That's Eastern State Penitentiary, one of the most haunted prisons in the world. Built in 1829, this Gothic fortress pioneered the Pennsylvania system of total isolation. Prisoners were locked in tiny stone cells, forbidden to speak, forbidden to even see one another. The goal was penitence. Now, the result was madness. Now, visitors and guards reported hearing screams at night, even back in the 1800s. Inmates clawed at their walls, basically talked to themselves and collapsed into silence, and those who resisted met punishment straight out of a nightmare. The mat chair, where men were strapped so tightly their circulation stopped until they were left maimed. Now, the iron gag, where a bar clamped into the prisoner's mouth and was basically chained to their hands behind their back. Every time they moved, the gag tore at their lips and tongue. Others were thrown into something called the hole, which was an underground pit with no light, no food, and no air for days at a time. All of that anguish left scars in the stone. Paranormal investigators who visit Eastern State often capture strange orbs, glowing streaks of light, and even disembodied voices on tape. One guard swore he saw a shadow figure pacing inside a locked cell. Another visitor described being overcome by nausea, as though, the walls themselves were closing in. And then there's a story everyone knows. Al Capone, the most famous gangster of all time, was sentenced here in 1929. Unlike other inmates, Capone's was given a lavishly furnished cell with carpets, a desk, and even a radio. But even with his comforts, he was terrified. He would scream at night that James Clark, the man assassinated in the St. Valentine's Day mass assassination, he was in the room with him. That's what he claimed. Now, guards said he begged the ghost to leave him alone. Cell block 12 is still the most infamous. Guest reports laughing, echoing through the halls when no one's there. Cell block 6 is known for shadows darting from one doorway to another, and cell block 4 is where you'll hear footsteps that follow you even though you're alone. Now, some say it's just the echo of a broken building. Others swear it's the echo of broken souls. Cambria County Jail in Ebensburg. Now, not all haunted prisons are huge gothic castles. Some are small, tucked away in quiet towns, and that makes their stories even stranger. The Cambria County Jail in Ebensburg is one of those places. Built in 1872, this jail became infamous for executions. Now, 11 men were hung up on its gallows. Locals still whisper that these condemned never left. Visitors claim they hear the sound of sobs and dragging chains near the site of the hang-ups. Now, the most disturbing tale is about a prisoner known as Smitty. According to legend, Smitty was locked in his cell one night only to vanish by morning. The bars were intact, the locks unbroken, guards searched everywhere, but he was gone. Now, some believe he escaped, others say his spirit simply slipped out, leaving his body behind. To this day, the cell where Smitty was kept gives people an overwhelming sense of dread. Visitors describe flickering lights, sudden temperature drops, and the uneasy feeling of being watched. During paranormal tours, people have smelled cigarette smoke in empty corridors. Footsteps echo on staircases no one is climbing. The gallows area is especially active. Cold spots form suddenly, voices whisper in the dark, and some tourists have said they've even left in tears, claiming invisible hands push them. The jail's thick brick walls amplify every noise, making it hard to know what's real. But too many people have left shaken, convinced something beyond explanation is inside. Old Allegheny County Jail and Western Penitentiary in Pittsburgh. Now, Pittsburgh is home to not one but two prisons with chilling reputations, the Old Allegheny County Jail and the Western Penitentiary. The Old Allegheny Jail is a fortress-like building linked to the courthouse by the Bridge of Sighs. The most famous ghost story tied to this jail involves Mrs. Kate Sofel, the warden's wife. In 1902, she helped two convicted inmates escape after falling in love with them. The jailbreak ended violently. The brothers were hit by a firearm and Mrs. Sofel herself nearly unalived. People say her spirit lingers in the jail, wandering the corridors she once paced. Tour guides tell of hearing a woman's whisper, faint sobbing, or the sudden slam of cell doors when no one's actually near. Just across the city was Western Penitentiary, a prison that once held Confederate soldiers during the Civil War. Now, some claim those prisoners never left. Visitors report cold spots, muffled voices in the night, and shadowy figures dressed in outdated uniforms drifting through the halls. Paranormal groups have investigated and say they recorded faint cries and shouts in accents that don't sound modern. Even hardened locals admit these places just feel different. You can tour many old buildings without a problem, but in Allegheny and Western Penitentiary, it feels like the past is waiting for you. State Correctional Institution in Rockview, this is in Benner Township. Now, if there's one thing more chilling than abandoned prisons, it's the prison still in use because the energy there is fresh. Rockview is one of them. Now, since 1915, this prison has been the site of executions in Pennsylvania. More than 300 men have been put to demise here, first in the electric chair and later by lethal injection. Now, the prison death house is where condemned inmates spent their final hours. Guards whisper about it, footsteps echoing down empty halls, lights flickering in the execution chamber. The sensation of being watched even when they're alone. Some refuse to do rounds near the house unless they're paired with another officer. Visitors on official tours say the air feels heavier in that building. Paranormal investigators who who've managed to get permission describe recording unexplained sounds, knocks, cries, even static-like voices on electronic devices. Some claim this house carries the energy of every man who ever walked inside and just never walked out. Unlike other prisons, Rockview isn't frozen in time, it's still active. That means the terror is ongoing, and so of course are the whispers of ghosts. Holmesburg Prison in Philadelphia. Now, Holmesburg Prison is maybe the darkest story of them all. Built in 1896, it became infamous not just for riots and assassinations, but for something even more disturbing: experiments. Beginning in the 1950s, inmates were used as test subjects for pharmaceutical and chemical companies. Men were exposed to really toxic substances, radiation, and even biological agents. Many of them suffered burns, scarring, and lifelong illnesses. Prisoners describe being treated like lab rats, their skin painted with chemicals that left really horrible blisters. Some claim they were injected with substances they just never identified. Decades later, survivors said Holmesburg left them scarred in body and in their soul. With that much human suffering contained in one place, it's no surprise people call it cursed. Paranormal investigators report, hearing screams echoing through abandoned cell blocks, locals walking past at night saying they've seen shadowy figures in the windows, pacing back and forth. Some visitors describe sudden nausea and panic attacks inside even. The building itself adds to the dread. Very long hallways, crumbling walls, barred windows that look like daring eyes. And when you walk through Holmesburg, you don't just see history, you feel it pressing down on you, as if the walls themselves remember. Now, each of these prisons hold more than criminals. They hold pain, grief, and fear that, refuses to basically pass on. Eastern State shows us what silence can do to the human mind. Cambria County proves executions don't erase suffering. The old Allegheny Jail and Western Penitentiary remind us that history still breathes in the dark. Rockview reveals the weight of passing itself, and Holmesburg carries scars of cruelty disguised as science. These aren't just ghost stories, they're reminders of how deep human suffering goes and how it lingers long after the gates close. So which one would you dare to enter? Would you walk the halls of Eastern State, sit in a cell where Al Capone begged a ghost for, or step into Holmesburg where human experiments still echo? Let me know in the comments and subscribe for more terrifying dives into these places that history refuses to let go of. St. Mary's Church, located in Clopehill, England, and better known as Satan's Ruins. In the sleepy village of Clopehill lies a ruined church that has become infamous for ritualistic black masses and grave desecrations. Now, in 1963, vandals broke into St. Mary's Church, exhumed corpses from the graveyard, and arranged human remains in occult symbols. It shocked the nation, and believe it or not, that was just the beginning. Since then, paranormal investigators have documented seeing glowing orbs, shadow figures moving among the tombstones, and cold winds sweeping through on calm nights. One psychic claimed the site radiates pure malevolence. Local legend says a secret underground chamber beneath the altars where initiations into satanic cults took place, and some claim it's actually still used today. The kicker? Phone and camera batteries reportedly drain instantly when you try to record there at night, so if you visit, be sure to pack a portable charger with you. The Church of the Nine Ghosts in the Philippines, known as the Possessed Parish. This one is hidden in the jungle outside Quezon and is a crumbling stone church locals call Simbahan Siam Namulto, which is the Church of Nine Ghosts. It's said to be haunted by 9 priests who were unalive during World War II. The church is now abandoned, yet travelers swear they've seen ghostly robbed men lined up in the pews just silently watching. Creepy, right? One backpacker took photos and later found 9 blurred figures behind her in every single image, and that's despite her being alone. There's even an audio recording where a woman's voice whispers "Bumalik ka," which is Filipino for "come back." Paranormal groups that investigated the scene reported sudden nausea, burns on their skin, and full body apparitions. Now, many refused to return there, so with that in mind, my recommendation is to not go. Old St. George's Church in the Czech Republic. Now, this one is known as the Living Statues. In 1968, the ceiling collapsed mid-service at Old St. George's Church in Lakova. Now, that incident sparked whispers of a curse, and eventually, the building was actually just left to rot. spot. Now, years later, an artist installed dozens of ghostly statues resembling mourners frozen in prayer, but visitors that go say the statues actually move. Some turn their heads, others disappear entirely, only to reappear the next day in a completely different pose. Tourists report extreme chills, phantom voices reciting Latin prayers, and sensations of being watched from inside the pulpit. One woman who went actually fainted while standing amongst the statues and claimed she saw the face of her deceased mother in one of them. That's just terrifying. Our Lady of the Angels Cathedral, located in Los Angeles, and this one is known as the Screaming Sanctuary. LA's massive Our Lady of the Angels Cathedral was actually built in 2002, so not that long ago, but beneath it lies the site of a 19th century cemetery. Now, during construction, workers uncovered human remains, and ever since, whispers of strange phenomena have followed the church. A priest actually reported that the confessional booths shake violently at night. One security guard actually quit after seeing a woman in a veil walk through a locked glass door, whispering, "You buried me wrong." And during a 2014 midnight mass, a live microphone picked up a scream that none of the people there could actually hear in person. Only those listening online heard it. Audio engineers couldn't explain it either, so it's still a mystery. But the Vatican sent an inquiry the next month, and even still, nada. So visit at your own risk, but report back if you do and let me know how that goes. Borg Vanette Church in Sweden. This one has a pastor that never left, reportedly. Now, the Borg Vanette Church in northern Sweden is so haunted, it was actually converted into a hotel for ghost hunters. Built in 1876, the rectory was home to many pastors who all reported violent poltergeist activity, and one claimed he was even thrown from his chair by invisible hands. Visitors who go here hear crying babies, doors slam on their own, and chairs that are rocking by themselves. Now, a photo from 1981 reportedly shows a woman in 19th century clothing floating in a hallway. Now, if you stay the night, you're actually given a certificate, but most don't actually make it until dawn. So one woman locked herself in the bathroom for hours, saying something was trying to crawl into her body. So you literally get a certificate if you make it. It's kind of like when a burger joint gives you a prize if you finish their like 20-pound burger in 30 minutes. Honestly, I love a good challenge. This one seems worth it to try. I mean, I'm not gonna go, but you go and come back and tell me if you made it. We'll be waiting. Stull Church in Kansas, USA, which is also known as the Devil's Gateway. Now, the Stull Cemetery and church are so feared, some locals won't actually say its name out loud. Legend says a hidden staircase beneath the church ruins leads directly to hell, and that the devil himself rises there twice a year, once on Halloween and once on the spring equinox. Now, the church was mysteriously torn down in the 90s at some point, but stories persist. Visitors have seen hooded figures appear behind gravestones and then just vanish. Electronics fail instantly, and one woman claims her unborn baby stopped kicking in her belly during her visit and only resumed movement when they actually left the grounds. So that's creepy. Even Pope John Paul II reportedly diverted his plane around Kansas to actually avoid flying over Stull. So yeah, this one is a no for me. I'm good. Notre Dame de la Garde in Marseille, France. Now, this is the Church of Unanswered Prayers. Known as the protector of sailors, this Balicanin in Marseille has a dark undercurrent. During storms, prayers are basically offered here to keep boats safe, but locals say if your prayer is rejected, you'll know instantly. Several fishermen have gone missing at sea after visiting the church and reportedly mocking its sacredness. Now, inside, people have heard whispers in Italian or Latin despite no one being nearby. A journalist caught a photo of what looks like a black shadow with horns looming in the upper gallery. Some visitors describe being overcome with grief and dread despite, entering feeling completely normal. Locals say the church knows who you are and what you've done. I don't need my dirty laundry aired out, so I'm gonna pass on this one. Poveglia Island Church in Italy. Now, this is the island of no return, as you know. Now, off the coast of Venice lies Poveglia Island, once a quarantine zone for plague victims and later home to an asylum. The island has a crumbling church where the bell tower still rings, even though the bell was removed years ago. Legend says a doctor who basically tormented patients threw himself from the tower after claiming he was being dragged to hell by ghosts. His body was was never recovered. No one lives there now. Locals say if you try to set foot on the island, you'll never feel clean again, whatever that means. And some believe the church was never holy to begin with, only built to hide the evil beneath it. Churches are meant to be places of peace, right? Forgiveness and light, but these are the ones where the light no longer reaches. Whether cursed, abandoned, destroyed, each of these churches have become something else entirely, maybe even gates to hell. Which one creeped you out the most? Drop your answer below. If you're brave enough, visit one of these places. Don't forget to say a prayer before you do. Thanks so much for watching. I'm your host Ashley. Until next time, stay scared. These scary places you're not allowed to visit have some demonic activity going on, so count your lucky stars. You're forbidden to take a trip to any of them. Poveglia Island in Italy, also known as the Island of the Damned. They say you can still hear the screams of the tormented souls who passed away here. Poveglia Island in Venice is completely off limits to tourists, and for good reason. It was used as a quarantine zone during the Black Plague, where over 160,000 infected people were sent there to pass away. Later, in the early 1900s, a psychiatric hospital was built on the island where legend says a deranged doctor performed lobotomies and eventually threw himself off the bell tower after claiming he was being tormented by demons himself. Now, locals refuse to go near it. Fishermen won't even drop anchor nearby. It's still a haunted island to this day, so go at your own risk. Starting with the Myrtles Plantation in St. Francisville, Louisiana. It's called one of America's most haunted homes, and honestly for good reason. At first glance, the Myrtles Plantation looks like a dreamy slice of Southern history, complete with moss-draped oaks and a wraparound porch, but don't let that charm fool you. This place is riddled with spirits. The most infamous ghost? Well, Chloe. Legend says she was an enslaved woman punished for eavesdropping by having her ear cut off. In retaliation, she allegedly baked a poisonous cake that unalived two young girls. Now, she was sent to the gallows, and ever since, people claim she appears in a green turban near the old slave quarters. A photograph taken in 1992 reportedly shows her standing actually between two buildings, a photo many believe is authentic. But she's not the only one. Guests have reported hearing children giggling late at night only to find empty hallways and nobody even there. Mirrors in the house show handprints on them that actually won't wipe off, and a grand piano in the parlor plays by itself, and quite beautifully apparently, but also, as you can imagine, quite eerily as well. And some guests have fled basically in the middle of the night after seeing full body apparitions standing at the foot of their beds. They literally said, yeah, no thanks, I think I'm gonna head out now. Now, the Myrtles have over 200 years of tragic history. From mysterious passings to Civil War violence, paranormal investigators have called it a hotbed of activity, with nearly every room said to have some sort of haunting. The LaLaurie Mansion, located in New Orleans in Louisiana. Even in a city known for its haunted past, the LaLaurie Mansion stands out as a nightmare frozen in time. Located in the heart of the French Quarter, which if you're not familiar or never been to Mardi Gras, this is a paranormal super space riddled with paranormal activity. Anyway, this stately Creole mansion hides one of the most disturbing stories of cruelty and supernatural revenge in US history. Get ready and sit tight for this one, friends. Now, in the early 1800s, Madame Delphine LaLaurie was a socialite known for her wealth and influence, but also for the really horrific mistreatment of the enslaved people in her home. In 1834, a kitchen fire led authorities to the attic where they discovered a secret torment chamber. Victims were found chained, mutilated, and barely alive. Some even reportedly had experimental surgeries performed on them. Can you imagine? I mean, I don't want to, but no wonder they're haunting the place, right? Now, the mansion was mobbed and burned, and LaLaurie fled to Paris. She was basically like, see ya, but the spirits of her victims never left, and I don't blame them. I mean, these goo-goos got some unfinished business with her, and they're standing on business, as they should, period. For nearly 2 centuries, residents and visitors alike have reported hearing just a bunch of crazy stuff, like wailing screams, phantom footsteps, and seeing shadowy figures kind of lurking in the upper windows. Now, some even say the ghost of Madame LaLaurie herself still haunts the house, trapped in her legacy of torment. Actor Nicolas Cage actually bought the mansion in 2007 and sold it just 2 years later. You don't say. Now, he never explained why, but insiders say he couldn't handle what was happening inside. I mean, I feel like that is just so on brand for Cage. I feel like I'm not even shocked that he bought it for some reason. I just feel like this is something he would do, honestly. I do love me some Nicolas Cage. I mean, fun fact, I have a pillow with his face on it. We call it Pelocalus Cage. Anyway, the place is haunted, so don't visit, or do, and report back. The old state capitol located in Baton Rouge in Louisiana, so this place, it looks like a castle, and it's haunted like one too. I mean, the old state capitol in Baton Rouge is a stunning Gothic revival building perched on the Mississippi River, but behind the stained glass windows and spiral staircases lies a very long and eerie history. It was originally built in 1852. The building served as Louisiana's state house and witnessed everything from Civil War occupation to massive political upheaval. Now, it even burned down once and had to be rebuilt. But the real reason people say it's haunted, well, Pierre Covillion, a fiery politician who passed away during a heated debate inside the chambers, apparently still roams the halls and rooms there and refuses to leave. Visitors claim he's still there. Now, many, if not almost all visitors, claim to have heard banging desks, slamming doors, and someone, likely Pierre, mumbling angrily in French. So I mean, most non-French speaking visitors don't actually know what he's saying. I mean, he could honestly just be recommending the best place close by to get a hot dog, but we'll never know. Or he's saying get out. I mean, that's also a really good high possibility. Now, staff and tourists have reported hearing phantom footsteps when the building is empty, unexplained cold drafts, and even lights flickering without any power issues. Now, the basement is particularly unsettling. Paranormal investigators have recorded EVPs, strange electromagnetic readings, and a persistent sense of just being watched. So basically, all things spooky that you would expect when visiting, well, you know, a spooky haunted place. If there's a checklist, this place ticks off every single box. It's now a museum, but employees refuse to work there alone after dark. I don't blame them. I mean, some claim the building itself seems to breathe, like it's alive and angry. I mean, that's kind of terrifying in itself. I don't want to go anywhere where a building is breathing. Like, what? Would you visit this place? Let me know. The DeRidder jail, located in DeRidder, Louisiana. Locals call it the hanging jail, and the name itself, you know, isn't just for show. In 1928, two men convicted of executing a taxi driver were sent to the scaffold right inside the jail to be taken out, which was, at the time, a very rare and brutal public execution that set the tone for the building's eerie legacy. Now, the jail was built in 1914 and has been abandoned for decades, but investigators and visitors swear it's anything but empty. Cold spots, disembodied voices, ghostly apparitions have been reported throughout the decaying cells. Now, some visitors say they hear a woman weeping softly near cell number 3, despite the jail never having housed any female inmates. So my guess would be like a widow, maybe a girlfriend, a mother. I don't know. I'm just trying to run through like what would make the most sense as to why a woman would go and hang out there, but whatever. The actual hanging chamber remains intact, complete with the original trapdoor and lever. Now, paranormal groups have documented strange electromagnetic spikes in the gallows room and caught shadowy figures darting across camera lenses. So imagine, if you will, like a typical jump scare in your favorite scary movie. If that's not enough, you know, during one overnight tour, a man claimed he actually felt someone grab his ankle and there was no one near him. Another visitor collapsed in the gallows room, later saying she felt like someone was trying to pull her down with them. Oh my god, the horror, just imagine. Now remind me to never go visit there. I'm good on that one, thanks. St. Louis Cemetery number 1 in New Orleans, Louisiana. Now, New Orleans has plenty of haunted cemeteries, as you'd imagine, but St. Louis Cemetery number 1, founded in 1789, is the crown jewel of the departed. It's the final resting place of Marie Laveau, the infamous voodoo queen, whose power still terrifies skeptics and believers alike. Speaking on this queen, in case you don't know anything at all about her, well, she was a real historical figure, a big deal, a Creole woman who practiced a mix of, you know, Catholicism and voodoo in the 1800s and was known for her healing, spiritual readings, as well as rumored curses. Now, since her passing in 1881, people claim to have seen her wandering between the tombs, wearing a red and white headscarf and clutching a snake. Very specific and also very creepy, right? Visitors leave, you know, offerings as a way to appease her and basically hope she doesn't attack them or curse them. I mean, many people leave like lipstick, rum, coins, etc. And they also do this though to ask for favors. But disrespect her grave and it's said she'll follow you. Like, not just around the premises, no, she'll follow you home. One tourist reportedly kicked over an offering and later woke up at home with scratch marks on his back and bruises in the shape of fingers. Even seasoned tour guides refuse to walk certain rows alone. Other graves in the cemetery also hold secrets. Phantom figures are seen peeking out from behind tombs, and multiple guests have caught orbs and strange mists on camera, especially around dusk.
Alright, I think I'm gonna kick off today with a case from Detroit Detroit, Michigan. The mystery of the disappearance of Phyllis Ann Flynn is one that lingers, casting a shadow over the years that have passed since that fateful night in May of 1988, which was before I was born. It's a puzzle that has defied resolution, leaving family and investigators grasping at straws in their quest for answers. After a birthday celebration at the Hotel Yorba in Detroit, Flynn vanished without a trace. The circumstances surrounding her disappearance are as mysterious as the hotel itself. She had requested that her father pick her up, a plea that would echo throughout the years as a haunting reminder of the unanswered questions. Now, the timeline of events is hauntingly sparse. A few days after her birthday, Flynn called home, signaling her desire to be retrieved from the Hotel Yorba. However, when her father arrived, she had evaporated into thin air, leaving behind an eerie void, and nobody has heard from her since. In the years that followed, the case went cold, a perplexing enigma with no breakthroughs. The detective assigned to Flynn's case retired, and the shadows seemed to close in on the scant leads. But even as the official investigation drew to a close, a glimmer of hope persisted among those determined to unravel the mystery. A family friend and a diligent Michigan State Police detective breathed some new life into the cold case back in 2014, so about a decade ago, reigniting the flame of inquiry. The Community United Effort Center for Missing Persons brought national attention to Flynn's disappearance, thrusting it into the spotlight of awareness-building efforts. The passage of time has not dimmed the resolve of those seeking closure. The Missing in Michigan campaign, led by Detective Sarah Krebs, has tirelessly worked to unearth fresh clues. The story of Phyllis Flynn found its place on billboards, a visual plea for information that could hopefully pierce through the fog of uncertainty. But to this day, the question remains: what happened at the Hotel Yorba? The void left by Flynn's disappearance resonates, a silent call for answers. The reward offered by Crime Stoppers of Michigan stands as an incentive, a monetary beacon beckoning anybody with information to step forward. But with the passage of 36 years, the harsh reality is lingering. Flynn's family, against the odds, clings to hope that she might still be alive. But sadly, the Hotel Yorba, once a backdrop to a birthday celebration, now stands as a silent witness to a disappearance that continues to baffle those who seek resolution. So I don't exactly have a name for this next hotel, outside of knowing that it's somewhere in the UK. I know, vague, but it was worth telling today. Imagine a place shrouded in whispers and veiled in the unknown. A hotel that, over the years, has become an unsettling enigma, a backdrop to a haunting mystery that eludes comprehension. It's not your typical story. It's a tale woven with threads of uncertainty and shadowed by the inexplicable disappearances of 66 young people. Nestled in the heart of the countryside, this hotel, with its weathered facade, stands as a testament to a history stained by the unexplained. The corridors echo with the distant laugh of young people who once roamed freely, their footsteps now silenced by a force that transcends the boundaries of our understanding. The first whispers of the mystery dates way back, like decades, a quiet murmur amongst locals who traded stories of curious occurrences. As time unfolded, so did the tales of the vanished youths, leaving a chilling imprint on the history of this seemingly ordinary establishment. Each disappearance, if we're going to compare it to something, maybe a jigsaw piece missing from a larger puzzle, paints a spectral image of uncertainty. The missing people, diverse in their backgrounds, ages, and stories, all converge at this point, their common thread being a vanishing act that perplexes even the most seasoned investigators. The authorities, puzzled and haunted by the lack of clues, have combed through the hotel's history, interviewed witnesses, scrutinized every nook and cranny, but they've got nothing. The answers remain elusive, like ghosts slipping through the fingers of those who seek them. The hotel itself, with its creaking floorboards and flickering lights, becomes a stage where the mundane collides with the mysterious. An invisible hand seems to orchestrate a malevolent symphony, leaving behind a disconcerting silence in the wake of each disappearance. The local community, once welcoming, now gazes upon the hotel with a mix of fear and curiosity. Whispers in the wind suggest that the place holds secrets, that it harbors an otherworldly energy, indifferent to the laws of our reality. As the count of those who have vanished climbed, the hotel's reputation transformed. It became more than bricks and mortar. It was just this living, breathing entity with a story. The rooms, once filled with the innocent laughter of youth, now resonate with an eerie stillness, a reminder of those who stepped into the shadows and never returned. Yeah, that's not somewhere I want to visit. No thank you, I'll leave the mysteries there. I don't need to unravel them. Now next up we have a legend that I believe to be true. Many years ago, an English woman and her daughter, at the conclusion of a tour in the Near East, arrived at a Paris hotel at the time of the exhibition. They were given separate rooms, one above the other. Trust me, I wouldn't want to be in the same room as my mother. After resting for a few hours, the daughter went to go see her mother, but the room was empty and completely altered. Like new wallpaper, new furniture, new everything. She was panicking. She called the maid and then the manager, and the manager was like, "You're under a delusion. When you arrived at this hotel, you were quite alone." But the girl was like, "No, we signed our names in the visitor's book, mother and I." So they brought out the visitor's book, and above the daughter's name, what the mother had signed, was a signature of a stranger. Now, it wasn't until about a year later that the daughter learned that her mother had died suddenly of the plague, and that in order to save Paris from, crazy panic and the exhibition from absolute ruin, it was hurriedly agreed by the authorities that the death should be completely hushed up, and that the daughter should be made to believe, by the repeated denials of hotel servants, hotel managers, and cabmen, and the proofs of, the changed room and the altered visitors book that her unfortunate mother never reached the hotel. Imagine, you go to take a nap and you wake up and all of a sudden, okay, mom's gone, and you're Delulu. The girl allegedly found out the truth in a letter from a chambermaid. So when the story was originally told at a dinner at the house of Arthur Balfour, at the time, British Prime Minister, they were all hanging out, and Balfour was like, yeah, I'm gonna guess the ending. Now, a journalist for the Pall Mall Gazette, I think this was around 1913, talked to the author who originally published the tale, a Mr. Clement K. Shorter, noting by this time, of course, we've all heard the story. What's the truth to it? And Mr. Shorter's like, no, I believe it happened. It is a heck of a lot easier to believe that it happened than it was invented. And given an illness under precisely the same circumstances, the French police authorities are the only police authorities in the world who are equal to coping with it so brilliantly. I can't imagine waking up and being told, hey, you're completely wrong. No, thank you. Now for a tale that cursed me to my core, Liz, Sarah, and the Cosmos Resort. 2 years ago, a seemingly ordinary vacation turned into a nightmarish odyssey for a pair of friends, Liz and Sarah. The backdrop? A hotel that, despite its outward appearance of renovation and cheerfulness, concealed a darkness that would shake the very core of their existence. So the girls went in the lobby, they're like, okay, we're gonna go sign in. But there was this feeling of unease that was just sort of everywhere in the air. The check-in process was marked by odd glances and a peculiar conversation with the hotel staff. But they got upgraded. Woohoo! Room 347. This room with a view that won Sarah over. Seemed like, okay, things are getting better. Maybe my gut's just off. Maybe I need a nap. The first night was uneventful for Sarah, but for Liz, the shadows whispered secrets that kept her awake. Strange scratching noises emanated from behind the walls, which, yikes, that's not a soundtrack I want when I'm trying to sleep. And it only got worse as the days went on. A hidden door, concealed behind a nightstand, revealed a narrow, ominous space that reeked of rust and bleach. Yeah, that's terrifying. As Sarah delved deeper into the mystery, she discovered a network of tunnels, a dark labyrinth that extended beneath the hotel. The eerie passageways, laden with the stench of decay, hinted at a sinister purpose, one that became much more apparent as time went on. Liz's disappearance on the final night of their stay plunged Sarah into a desperate search for answers. The hotel staff's nonchalant response and the dismissive attitude of the police created an air of conspiracy. Sure, because the hidden door that led to under the hotel with the stench of decay wasn't enough. Determined to unravel the enigma, Sarah returned to the haunted hotel, guided by an invitation that seemed to taunt her, if you will. The nights after became a harrowing exploration of the hotel's hidden layers. The H sections, neglected and avoided, hinted at a malevolence that defied, my brain. The discovery of a bricked-up elevator shaft and the disturbing encounters in the narrow tunnels hinted at a malevolent force that lurked within the hotel's very foundation. So, fast forward, it's the final night, and in a desperate attempt to retrace Liz's steps, Sarah was led to an encounter with entities that, weren't of this world. Liz, or a distorted version of her, beckoned from the shadows. The nightmarish entities, with eyes that pierced the darkness, pursued Sarah through the dilapidated corridors, transforming the once grand ballroom into a grotesque spectacle. Now this whole mess reached its climax on the mysterious 7th floor. The revelation that Liz's encounter in the tunnel had birthed something malevolent. Something that wore her face, but harbored unspeakable horrors. Yeah, it painted a bit of a grim picture. The hotel's twisted reality, where time and space lost coherence, left poor Sarah grappling with a profound sense of dread. Now, this sad story concludes with Sarah's escape, but the psychological scars, they run deep. The fear of encountering those otherworldly entities, of witnessing the distorted face of Liz, that's gonna linger like a memory you don't want to have. The hotel, now a malevolent entity in its own right, kind of stands as a thin veil that separates our world from the other world, and not one you want to go near. Time to travel over to the heart of Santa Fe, and no, that isn't a cue for Newsies or Rent fans, so hush. Nestled within the walls of the La Posada Hotel lies a tale that, it's gonna give you some nightmares, folks. It's a narrative steeped in mystery, spectral apparitions, and unexplained phenomena. Cool, we got the whole trifecta. Room 256, once the abode of Julia Staub, echoes with the whispers of a bygone era, where the living and the dead seem to converge in a dance of the paranormal. Is it a ballet? So Chuck Barone, a vigilant security guard, recounted an eerie encounter that unfolded in this specific room of the hotel. In the company of a bellhop and a group of tourists, they approached said room, room 256, responding to a mysterious voice emanating from within. "I'm in here," it beckoned, yet upon investigation, the room was empty, with its windows locked from the inside, so there was no getting out of there. There was a phantom presence. Unseen, but you felt it. The paranormal enigma extended way beyond Chuck's story, by the way. His son John, a fellow guardian of the hotel secrets, if you will, witnessed a ghostly face in the men's room mirror. It was a woman's face, staring back at him, sending a shiver right down his spine, and this inexplicable encounter left him pale and shaken, which, that tracks. Ross Weisenhoff, once a skeptic, found himself entangled in the spectral tapestry of the hotel as well. Awakening in the middle of the night, he noticed a luminescent figure at the foot of his bed. This entity morphed into the ethereal form of a woman, fixating on him with an otherworldly gaze. Now this encounter shattered his skepticism, prompting a swift, "I'm getting out of here," as you do. The genesis of these ghostly manifestations lies in the tragic history of Julia, the lady of the mansion turned spectral hostess. She was once the vibrant center of Santa Fe's social tapestry, but fell into self-imposed exile after the loss of her 8th spawn. The Grand Mansion, a testament to love and opulence, transformed into the La Posada Hotel in 1936. Enter Christopher Chacon, a seeker of truth from the Organization of Scientific Investigation and Research. Alongside a team of experts, he delved into the paranormal intricacies of the hotel. Physical, psychological, and electrical examinations were conducted, leaving no stone unturned. 12 hours in isolation within the bedroom that's, doing all the bad things, monitoring the environment for any spectral stirrings. Infrared technology and night vision equipment were brought in, but despite the diligence, the source of the haunting remained elusive. Which, okay, we'll let you be. Ghosty ladies can do what you want. I would like to live. In 5th place, we have Isla de la Munecas, Mexico. So the island of the dolls in Mexico is like something straight out of a horror movie, but my kind of horror movie, or perfect place. Located on Texuelo Lake, it is home to hundreds of hanging, slowly decaying dolls, thanks to a man named Don Julian Santana. So over 50 years ago, Don Santana left his wife and child and moved onto an island on Texuelo Lake in the Xochimilco canals. I promise I tried to say it right. Let me know in the comments if I got it wrong. According to him, a young woman actually drowned in the lake in the 1950s, and he devoted his life to honoring this lost soul by collecting and hanging up dolls by the hundreds. Eventually, Don transformed the entire island into a doll-infested wonderland. So he began collecting lost dolls from the canals and the trash near his island home. He's also said to have traded produce he grew to locals for more dolls. But he didn't clean them up or attempt to fix them, he just put them up with missing eyes and limbs, covered in dirt and generally in whatever ramshackle state he found them in. Even when the dolls arrived to him in good shape, the wind and weather turned them into cracked and distorted versions of themselves, which I love. He also kept his cabin filled with dolls, which he dressed in headdresses, sunglasses, and other accessories as need be. So despite the fact that most people found this island frightening, he saw the dolls as beautiful protectors, as he welcomed visitors who he would show around, charging just a small fee for taking photos, just for upkeep and stuff. In 2001, Don Santana was found drowned in the same area, in which he believed that a woman had died. So according to legend, the dolls and the island are haunted by the spirits of the dead girl, and perhaps even by, Don himself. Alrighty, so after all that, who wants to go on a road trip with me? Anyone? Look, as long as we leave the dolls alone, I'm sure the curse won't follow us home. Okay, I'm 50% certain, but still. Let's go. In 4th place, we have Lokrum and Daksa in Dubrovnik, Croatia. So both of these places have such dark histories that I couldn't leave either of them out. They work so well together. One of them, Lokrum, is accessible by a regularly scheduled, kinda crowded, taxi boat, whereas the other, Daksa, has no links to the mainland and is actually avoided by locals. So legends and suspicions have surrounded this beautiful island of palm trees and pines since its long-term residents were removed in 1798. So settled on Lokrum since the early around 11th century, the community of Benedictine monks were evicted by Napoleon's troops. The night before their expulsion, the troops placed a curse on those who usurped the sacred ground. Half a century later, Habsburg Royal Maximilian, the younger brother of the Emperor Franz Joseph, bought Lokrum. He converted the monastery complex into his pleasure gardens, spending many a happy summer having exotic trees and plants planted and colorful birds imported. He later met his end by execution, even though close friends tried to give him an escape that he didn't accept because, get this, he felt shaving his beard to disguise himself would undermine his dignity if he were to be recaptured, which, I think that tells me plenty about his character. Oh, and from the exclusive beach bistro of the 5-star hotel, Daksa is usually just referred to as another, splash of green in an idyllic panorama of islands that tends to hang out. And if you're looking at the map, Daksa is pretty close, you could almost swim there. But the dotted lines around it kind of indicating sailing routes that really avoid it on purpose, skirting around to just avoid it no matter what. So kind of like Lokrum, in medieval times Daksa was first inhabited by monks, although later well-to-do travelers ignored it, preferring the larger, more accessible island to relax. In October of 1944, partisans were expelling pro-German Nazi forces from great swaths of what would become post-war Yugoslavia, and they arrived in Dubrovnik. Rounding up hundreds of sympathizers, including the city's mayor and local priests, they then took a certain number over to Daksa and executed executed them. Citizens were warned not to look for their loved ones in any case because there were no graves or burial plots. Dubrovnik simply got on with being part of Yugoslavia, and Daksa was never visited. If it was discussed, the talk turned to ghosts and the bad spirits that haunted the island. And in 2009, someone stumbled on the remains of several bodies. Forensic investigation revealed that there were 53 adult males, some carrying religious items associated with priesthood. A plot was created for reburials and a memorial erected. But even today, very few people visit Daksa, and it's abandoned and pretty much overgrown, so its secrets are hidden, and I'm good. In third place, we have Dead Man's Island. Even though it's kind of close to the public, Dead Man's Island is home to ghostly lore that is centuries old, so of course I had to talk about it. The list of spectral sightings and strange phenomena grows by the year, ranging from loud clanging noises that ring out in the dead of the night, to hurried footsteps that pace back and forth, or the unearthly moan of a young woman's sobs that fill the air. Tales of supernatural encounters stretch back more than a century, so the Squamish people call the place the Island of Dead Men. And a very long time ago, it said it was the site of a fierce battle. We're talking like northern and southern nations fought over claims to this plot of land. Now, the southern nation kidnapped 200 women, younglings, and elders from the north and held them captive. But when 200 young northern warriors traded themselves for the hostages' freedom, they were cut down on the spot. In the 1860s, the government offered to sell the land to one Samuel Brighouse. He declined the offer, but one of his partners, John Morton, decided why not. He rode to the island where he found hundreds of red cedar boxes scattered, amongst the foliage and perched in the upper branches of the tree, and quickly discovered they were fragile. When he reached up to touch one of them, it had crumbled above his head, showering him with the bones of its long-deceased inhabitant. Yeah, nope, that's when you run for the hills and say, no thanks. In the 1890s, a plague descended upon Vancouver, and Dead Man's Island was used as a pest house. So those who fell ill were sent to the island for quarantine. And if they got better, they were allowed to return home. If not, they never left. From 1899 to 1930, this island was home to a logging dispute. Local authorities and residents alike were kind of outraged by it, and at 6:30 a.m. on April 24th of 1899, when the developer headed out to the island with 30 men, then Mayor James Garden brought almost the entire police force with him to the island. When the developer attempted to cut down a tree, he and his men were arrested. Now, several similar episodes dotted the decades until the lease expired in 1930. In a 1909 incident, police occupied the island overnight to keep loggers at bay, and claimed they heard the rattling of dead man's bones and shrieking skeletons that threatened to haunt anyone who dared cut down trees on the island. The island is home to too many bodies to count. First Nations people, British merchant sailors, early pioneer residents of Moodyville, Hastings Sawmill and the Granite Town site, Canadian Pacific Railway workers who died during construction, victims of the Great Vancouver Fire of 1886, those who succumbed to smallpox, and possibly some of the squatters who made the island their home for many years. No. Absolutely not. That's way too many dead bodies for my liking. Way too many spirits and angry ghosties. Absolutely not. In second place, we have the island of Poveglia. So the island is located in the lagoon near Venice and is famous for being one of the most haunted places in Italy. Tourists and locals alike are banned from this place, which was used for centuries as a place to exile the sick to prevent the spread of disease and, contain the mentally ill in an asylum built in the late 1800s. Yes, I'll backtrack and elaborate, and it's kind of similar to Dead Man's Island, but worse. In 1348, the bubonic plague arrived in Venice and Poveglia, and like many other small islands at the time, it became a quarantine colony. The plague on average killed like 1 out of 3 Europeans, and fearing the spread of the disease, Venice exiled many of its symptom-bearing citizens there. So if you sneeze, off you go. At the island's center, the dead and those too sick to protest were burned on giant pyres, and now this includes the tens of thousands of citizens dying on the mainland. And those fires would burn once more in 1630 when the Black Death again swept through the city. The small island was used as a mass burial ground, and ashes from human remains make up as much as 50% of the island's soil. Grapes, I hope it's a good fertilizer. The deaths of nearly 160,000 people on the island have given it its nickname, the Island of Ghosts. Now, a doctor at that asylum that I mentioned a moment ago was known to have experimented on patients with, crude lobotomies, and he jumped from the bell tower in the 1930s after claiming he had been driven mad by ghosts. I wonder why. You torture people and they're gonna haunt you in the afterlife? Go figure. Decades later, nearby residents claim to still hear the bell, even though it was removed many years earlier. A report titled Haunted History states that some restoration work had started in recent history, but abruptly stopped without explanation. Okay, maybe this is one spot on today's list I don't want to visit. And in first place, we have Bell Island. So time to travel to Newfoundland, Canada, but more specifically, the claustrophobic rocky mining tunnels. So there's a sense of miner spirit watching from every corner and crevice in this world, where the shadows flicker and the darkness just, it's just heavy. So between when the mines opened in 1895 and the last mines closed in 1966, there were 106 fatalities and, triple those accidents. Miners lost arms, legs, some were left disfigured, while others died of lung disease. No big. Heritage Newfoundland and Labrador reported in 1938 that a methane gas explosion in the number 6 mine killed 2 men and injured several others. In the 1950s, with the implementation of more powerful and faster machinery, miners were often killed or wounded by runaway ore cars and falling debris, to name just a couple of disasters. At the start of the mining, men wore felt baseball hats with the only light flickering from the dull glow of a candle on top and a tin lamp burning seal oil perched on a rocky ledge. Safety improved by like a smidgen around 1911 with the introduction of carbide lamps. And in 1935, miners wore battery-powered electric lights. But before all those great improvements, miners had no proper bathrooms or eating facilities, there was no warmth, and they worked like 10 to 12-hour shifts for 6 days a week for 5 to 7 cents an hour, seeing the sunlight only on Sundays. Okay, that sounds like me, but I swear, I do take a day off. Boys as young as 10 worked alongside men as old as 80, picking ore off the conveyor belts, separating the chunks by size and discarding the waste. The site contained 4 major underground mines called number 2, 3, 4, and 6, which I've already mentioned, and they ran about, 3 to 5 miles in length. And then on the surface, there were 2 more mines called the number 1 and the number 5 that were mined out before, going underground. And what's left of the number 4 mine, folks have heard muffled disembodied whispering, felt an icy wind rush past, footsteps, and often there's a dreadful feeling of being watched. Now, the most unfriendly character to roam the area is not a long-dead miner entering or leaving the tunnels, but a vengeful white woman. So women back then were considered to bring bad luck if they entered a mine, or even walked onto the mining site. Yeah, I can vouch for the fact that miners, similar to actors, can be very superstitious people. Remember, I'm from a Canadian gold mining town myself. Now, the white woman began to appear in the 1940s. And remember how I mentioned the mines didn't have running water? Yeah, the men would collect buckets from a well. So one day when the men went to collect water, and to their horror, discovered the body of a young woman, dressed in all white, floating in the well. Her skin had turned an icy blue in, the post-mortem state, and shortly after removing the body from the well, mine number 4 became a hub of paranormal activity. Men that were heading home after a long shift would get fiercely attacked by this woman. And wounded, they got treated at the nearby hospital, and those events would happen until about the mid-1960s, after the discovery of the killer. Well, the turn of the 19th century dispelled many of the long-standing myths and legends that were once pretty common on the island. In some cases, they actually got replaced with all new supernatural horrors. Belle Island has been labeled the most haunted island in North America. So, moving forward, in the early 20th century up until the 1950s, the island had a blend of ethnicities. We're talking like English, Irish, Scottish, German, and more. And they've all got their own superstitions as well. Before Newfoundland joined Canada as a province, it was a lawless place, filled with sailors, stowaways, misfits, and, the folklore got really mixed with the macabre. Wherever you found a piece of land, you planted your home, and there's a lot of things that happen that people still can't explain. What was I forgetting? Oh right, I almost forgot about the fairies. Once there was a man on Belle Island who actually disappeared for quite some time, and when he returned, he was totally different. He suddenly developed a serious speech impediment and walked hunched over with a cane in a jerky, unstable fashion. So the rumor was that the fairies took him. And hey, at the time, most of the community gossiped about this. According to locals, it's very common in old Newfoundland stories that if people have some kind of interaction with fairies, they are changed as a result. People in Newfoundland will also talk about a blast, where they will get an injury of some kind, like, they'll trespass on fairy ground and they'll be struck with the fairy arrow, and then they'll get a boil or a lump or something that's going to form on their body. And when that lump is cut open, things such as feathers and twigs are going to come out of that wound. And with what I know about fairies, this is officially the scariest curse on the list. They're very much something one does not mess with.
Taking off the list at number 5, the Mission of San Miguel, 1610. The birthplace and historic site, the original San Miguel Church was most likely built shortly after the founding of Santa Fe in 1610 and is claimed to have been the first ever church built in America. Churches are already creaky and creepy, then this is the oldest one in the States? Okay, here we go. This church was built right across the Santa Fe River in the area referred to as the Barrio de Analco, which was inhabited mainly by the native population for the past 1,000 years. The San Miguel Mission was first mentioned in writing in 1628, indicating it was in use at that point as both a mission and a school. Although intended as a mission, the Spanish also used it as their parish church until the parroquia was completed. The original San Miguel Church was probably much smaller than the structure present, with more of a rectangular apse, a slight slightly raised sanctuary, and a simple front elevation with no towers at all. The surviving foundations were excavated and closely researched by Bruce Ellis and Stanley Stubbs in 1955. Although the present building dates from 1710, it has undergone a multitude of significant structural changes since its infamous riot in which partially destroyed the building during the Pueblo Revolt of 1680. This was an uprising of mostly the indigenous Pueblo peoples against the Spanish colonizers in Santa Fe de Nuevo Mexico. The Pueblo Revolt killed around 400 Spaniards and drove the remaining 2,000 settlers out of the province, which is where the creepy stuff kinda sits around. Since its construction, there have been over 300 years of ghostly apparitions seen at these ruins. You can never really pinpoint a specific person at this location, but there are numerous sightings that have been documented over the years, ranging from ghost horses, dragging sounds, and loud bangs resembling warfare. The San Miguel Chapel still stands after 400 years due to its local, national, and international community that has supported its preservation and history. Everybody chipping in. I love it. Little TLC. I bet you this is also where you see ghosts on different floors that used to be there or behind walls that don't even exist anymore. Like, are they bound by these structures forever? They're just like... No. Forever? Number 4. La Posada Hotel, 1882. Located at 330 East Palace Avenue in Santa Fe, New Mexico, La Posada Hotel is more than 100 years old, finishing construction in 1884. A lively and prominent spot for celebrities in town during the 1900s, it was originally built to be the home of Mr. Abraham and Mrs. Julia Stabb. Perfect last name for the start of something scary. Stabb. A prominent businessman and German immigrant, Abraham had constructed this beautiful Grand French Second Empire estate ready to make a life working with his brother Zodak in business and eventually settling down in this historic town, with the mansion acting as a social hub for both the business and celebrity events. It is said that the Stabbs have 7 children, one of which died at birth, and which in fact led Miss Stabb to a depressed self-exile state, dying at the age of only 52. The mansion was converted into a hotel in 1936, shortly after the rubble of the Depression had cleared, and it is said that Julia herself haunts the rooms of La Posada Hotel. Guests have made claims to hear voices in vacant bedrooms, lights flickering on and off, and even doors slamming in the middle of the night. Voices saying things like, "I'm in here." It's never just like casual and calm, like, "Oh yeah, just leave the door open, I'm in here, come on in." It's always a creepy whisper in here, like, "I'm in here." Too creepy. La Posada Hotel Resort and Spa still remains one of New Mexico's most haunted hotels and is active and encourages overnighters to check out the Julia Stabb package, which involves a ghostly tour, history lesson of the grounds, a lovely dinner away from the kids, and a day done right by the pool or spa. Unfortunately, I won't be taking them up on the Stabb package at any time soon. Not at all. No chance. I hear one thing in the middle of the night and I'm out, and I'm up quickly. 12 seconds flat. I'm just like... Number 3. The Old State Penitentiary, 1885. The Old State is located 15 miles south of central Santa Fe and is an active men's maximum security prison that was built in 1885. Acting as a prison system for the US, the prison saw 3 massive riots in its entirety, including 1922, 1953, and the worst and most bloody riot of all, 1980. One of the worst prison riots in American history. It's presumed to be the reason behind its haunting reputation. On February 2nd, 1980, several inmates initiated a riot which led to the inmates gaining control over the prison for a full day and a half. Unfortunately, at the time, post-70s, the prison was overcrowded, underfunded, and riddled with untrained, fresh-faced security guards with the rampant need for excess bodies due to the overgrowing inmate count. After escaping and organizing this event, the cellmates then tortured 12 prison guards and brutally murdered 33 other inmates. These riots soon became medieval in nature, gruesome, and truly evil. The most famous area for paranormal sightings can be heard and seen around cell block 4. Men here were brutally butchered, dismembered, decapitated, and some even hung up on the cells and burned alive. This section of the prison was closed in 1998 and is now referred to as Old Main. As if that history isn't dark enough, witnesses and researchers claim that there's a ton of spirits that roam this prison. Dark figures and ghostly shadows have been seen roaming the cells and halls, unexplainable slamming of cell doors, men's voices, strange noises, and even echoed screams can be heard at this location. This is why I don't even jaywalk, people. Stay a couple nights at this haunted prison looking at axe marks on the ground? Yeah, no, I'm getting my phone out right away. I know exactly who I'm gonna call. Yeah, Number 2. The Amador Hotel. Located at 251 West Amador Street at the corner of Water Street and Las Cruces, which translates to the Crosses, an area in New Mexico spanning as far back as the settled early 1800s, was thought to be an early mass grave site for the amount of crosses present in the city. The Amador Hotel has stood serving the community in multiple ways over the years, including a courthouse, a post office, a bank, hotel, and even a county office center. Yeah, can I get 2 stamps, please? Thanks. Built in 1866, the Amador Hotel is a popular Las Cruces ghost tour, and some of the rooms were even used as jail cells. Hey, you're grounded for 15 years to life, I don't know. The courthouse was completed in 1885. Amador added another story to the remaining structure, and Amador Hall became a community center where people conversed in drinking and in storytelling. During tours, guests have reported seeing shadowy figures lurking in the hallways, numerous cold spots, flashlights turning on and off by themselves, and having their arms even touched or scratched. Oh yeah, that's it. Just a little to the left. That's perfect. Some even say it's the work of a little ghost girl named Annie, who frequently visits the room on the 2nd floor, giggling. Like, giggling is great and all until like a 200-year-old spirit giggles right in your face. Like, what is still funny? This is terrifying. Joke must have been that good. Little ghost girls? Yeah, that's the scariest ghosts imaginable. 100%. The Amador Hotel ghost tour starts at 8 p.m. and during a visit through the tour of the grounds, history and ghost hunting begins. I'm a strict matinee ghost hunter myself, only during the day, or never. Or like around brunch, that's like perfect, nice and sunny. And coming in at number 1, Double Eagle Restaurant. If you're heading down to Mesilla, New Mexico this weekend and enjoy burgers and ghost stories, well, then the Double Eagle Restaurant is a must stop for you. Known not only for the world's largest green pepper chili burger, this blast from the past decorated head to toe in its luxurious upscale Victorian decor is now the home to 2 prominent and active restaurants, the Double Eagle and Pepper's Cafe. Alright, here we go, let's dive in. Possibly the world's most haunted restaurants, originally owned by the Mays family, owning one of the leading and most lucrative import-export businesses in Santa Fe, was Senor and Senora Mays. Senora Mays expected only the best for her eldest son, Armando. Mothers and their sons, right? Always imaginarily wiping something off their faces. Come here, come, just, there's more. There is grim history here, involving 2 forbidden star-crossed lovers and a pair of sewing scissors. Thank you. The Double Eagle Restaurant is not only home for great food, beautifully handcrafted cocktails, but also home to a double homicide gruesome murder, in which these victims' souls would seem to be trapped within these walls forever. Armando, son and heir to his parents' business, falling head over heels in love with the family's household servant named Enos. Although Enos reciprocated such feelings about Armando, their relationship had to remain a secret due to Armando's mother's strict ordinance and the difference in the teenager's social and political positions. When Senora Mays discovered this relationship, she demanded that it end at once and banished Enos from her home indefinitely. It is said that one day Senora Mays came home, and unexpectedly interrupting the lovers, mid-swoon, entranced by their love as she grabbed her sewing scissors from the basket on the patio and attacked Enos, stabbing and killing her. As she prepared to strike again, Armando, her son, threw his body in front of Enos and was stabbed instead. Yeah, that's some Romeo and Juliet stuff there, people. The murders were held in the famous Carlotta Salon Room, which can be visited at any time. A heavily requested stop where spooky-goers can see a newspaper article titled Young Lover Ghosts on display, as well as an array of pictures taken of the young ghost lovers together over the years. That's terrifying! Here's the room, here's what happened, here's some proof.
In 5th place, we have Port Arthur. Port Arthur is a town and former convict settlement on the Tasman Peninsula in Tasmania, Australia. The site forms part of the Australian Convict Sites, a World Heritage Property consisting of 11 remaining penal sites originally built within the British Empire during the 18th and 19th centuries on Australian coastal strips. So collectively, these sites, including Port Arthur, are described by UNESCO as the best surviving examples of large-scale convict transportation and the colonial expansion of European powers through the presence and labor of convicts. From 1833 until 1877, Port Arthur was the destination for those deemed the most hardened of convicted British criminals, those who were secondary offenders having reoffended after their arrival in Australia. Rebellious personalities from other convict stations were also sent there. In addition, Port Arthur had some of the strictest security measures of the British penal system. So, as you can imagine, that would produce some pretty scary figures still kicking around with a grudge to hold. One popular figure who has been spotted frequently goes by the moniker moniker of Reverend George. A tour coordinator for the settlement is adamant that photos have been captured of the spirit, usually near the parsonage, which is where he's believed to have passed sometime in the 1870s. One of the more fearful spirits spotted on the grounds is named John Gold, a nasty convict who enjoys leering at unsuspecting visitors, often causing younglings to throw uncharacteristic tantrums and more. All in all, apparently there are more than 2,000 reports of unexplained activity, all bundled into 20 bulging files full of sightings of ghosts and strange emotional reactions to the buildings. In fourth place, we have the Adelaide Gaol. Thought to be one of the most haunted places in South Australia, the Adelaide Gaol is said to be regularly visited by some of the inmates and prison officers who once wandered its halls. First off, Frederick, otherwise known as Fred Carr, went the way of the rope necklace on the 12th of November of 1927 for the killing of his wife, Maud. He protested his innocence, even up until the final moments before his death, exclaiming that the law required his body, but it cannot have his soul, as he is innocent. Fred is said to regularly appear near the stairs leading to the upstairs cells of the new building. He is reported as a happy spirit, always neatly dressed in dark clothes and taking a polite interest in visitors wandering through his former home. Well, I'm glad one of the ghosties is chipper. Next up, we have William Baker Ashton, who was the first governor of the Adelaide Gaol, and despite being a reasonably fair man, he was accused of wrongdoing. William was a very large man, and when he died in his office in 1854, his body could not be manipulated down his apartment's steep, narrow staircase. Instead, he was unceremoniously lowered out of the front window to the undertaker's waiting below. 3 months after his death, William was exonerated, which was a little too late. On warm, still nights with a hint of thunder in the air, his footsteps are said to be heard through the walls of solid stone as he struggles to move furniture in an empty room. Finally, Ben Ellis was the hangman for 10 years, from the mid-1860s to mid-1870s, and lived in a small apartment below what became the female dormitory. Ben took pride in his work and approached each task with complete professionalism and never questioned the right or wrong of his profession until the 30th of December of 1873, when he was required to hang a female prisoner, Elizabeth Woolcock. She was to be the first and only woman executed in South Australia. So this event changed the way Ben viewed his profession forever, and his restless spirit is said to appear often throughout the residence. In third place, we have the Monte Cristo Homestead. The two-story Victorian manor was built by pioneer Christopher William Crawley in the New South Wales town of June in 1885 before his homestead became riddled with death and now claims to be the most haunted house in Australia. To be specific, a stable boy burned to death, a tiny human was thrown down the stairs, a maid was lobbed off a balcony, and a caretaker kaboomed to death, among others. Pardon me, I jumped straight to the good stuff without the history. Christopher Crawley first built the mansion in, 1885, where he lived with his wife Elizabeth, their 7 kiddos, and a series of servants. He was a wealthy farmer and landowner who had made his fortune in Junee, a small town in the Riverina region, after the Great Southern Railway line opened in 1878. With the success of his hotel and land sales, Christopher was able to retire early and began construction on his Monte Cristo homestead. This home was a status symbol for the Crawley family and a social hub for the town's most wealthy. Now, despite all the glamour, the Crawleys are said to have been holding on to many dark secrets and tragedies. Remember a moment ago when I mentioned that a young maid was said to have fallen to her death from the second-story balcony? Well, a bleach stain still remains where the scarlet life force was attempted to be removed, and footsteps can be heard pacing the top balcony in the middle of the night. Some even see the outline of a female figure on the balcony as well. The Crawleys themselves weren't immune from the, deathly Monte Cristo. Their youngest daughter, under a year old, died when her nanny accidentally dropped her down the stairs. Some claim it was on purpose, while others have ruled it as an accident. Feel free to let me know your theories in the comments. So the Monte Cristo homestead remained empty for over a decade after the last Crawley left in 1948. In 1963, Olive and Reginald Ryan purchased the now rundown manor for only about $1,000 Australian dollars. That's a bargain. Bone-chilling paranormal experiences were part of everyday life for the Ryan family, with Olive claiming to have had her name called out multiple times, only to find no one there. All of the offspring have also reported sightings of figures in old-fashioned clothes and have felt cold hands on their shoulders. Not the best place to grow up. In second place, we have the Airedale Mental Hospital. It's estimated that an astonishing 13,000 people passed away within the walls of the so-called Ararat Lunatic Asylum over its 140 years of operation, which made it perfect for today's list. So the now known Airedale Asylum was a psychiatric hospital in Ararat, a rural city in Victoria, Australia. So now considered a ghost town, the Airedale Asylum campus contains over 70 now abandoned buildings that once housed over 1,000 patients. As with many asylums of the time, it was meant to be self self-sufficient and provide the patients, or inmates as they were referred to at the time, with labor that was believed to help in their treatments. Despite its closure as an asylum in 1993, the facility was used to house female prisoners during the renovation of the Dame Phyllis Frost Center. Now, while reports exist of apparitions, phantom sounds, visitors experiencing nausea, fainting, and pain, some ghosts from Airedale's past have made themselves known to those who are alive today. George Fittimont was the last governor, so in 1886, he was showing a group of people around the asylum when they started down a set of stairs. Suddenly, George fell to his knees, suffering a major heart attack, and passed on the spot. These days, tour guides and visitors hear heavy footsteps and banging on that same stairwell, but when they go to take a look, no one's there. Gary Webb was a career criminal and had a long rap sheet when he was finally taken into custody and sent to stay at Airedale. Gary got comfortable there and started to write letters to the media, telling them the inhuman and horrible things he was planning to do once he got out. Citizens began to worry, and a special law was passed to keep him contained there for the rest of his life. He began to self-mutilate at this time and was hospitalized over 70 times. He even castrated himself 3 times during his sentence. So today, Gary is said to haunt his former room, screaming at visitors to get out and pushing them out the door. Visitors to the hospital who happen to walk past the office of the former superintendent report a sudden bitter taste in their mouth. Would you like to know why? Of course you do. The superintendent ended his life in his office after swallowing cyanide. The rest of the women's ward is haunted by a ghost named Nurse Carrie. She is said to watch over the tour guides. Her apparition, as well as others, have been seen in the women's ward donning old-time nurses' uniforms and disappearing into stone walls. Other folks report a tingling sensation in their head when they enter what used to be the shock therapy room. In the J ward in particular, visitors report feeling ill and suddenly afraid. Others slip into a trance, only released from it when they exit the building. Some people have even been bitten or pushed while walking through the J ward. The ward is also said to, be haunted by 3 prisoners who went the way of the rope necklace and buried on the property. They are said to be restless because they weren't given a proper burial, and their graves are only marked with 3 scratches on the prison wall. Could somebody fix it and give them a proper burial? Please? In first place, we have the entire town of Picton, New South Wales. So according to my research, it's the most haunted town in Australia. But Picton is also known for its countryside views and paranormal gardens. The town is located about 80 kilometers southwest of Sydney and has a historical significance due to its buildings and railway tunnels. The Mushroom Tunnel, also known as the former Red Bank Range Railway, is our main focus for today. There are famous tales of ghosts drifting around the tunnel, with the most popular being linked with a terrible railway accident involving a woman named Emily Ballard. Apparently, when the tunnel was still in use by the railway, Emily had been walking through it and was killed by an oncoming locomotive. It is unclear whether she deliberately ended her life or if her death was just an unfortunate accident. Reports suggest people often witness Emily and 2 other women ghosts, and also hear some scary voices. Just some cryings and shrieks. No biggie. The apparition of Emily has been seen in the depths of the tunnel, and is described as a white flowing figure of a woman with no face. Many people have also reported a sudden drop of temperature, eerie shadows, gusts of wind, orbs, body chills, and many weird other things happening inside the tunnel. The tunnel was apparently used to store mustard gas, spray tanks, and ammunition during World War II. It was also used as a mushroom farm, ergo the mushroom moniker amongst locals. From time to time, black shadows or figures have been seen on walls throughout the tunnel. Some witnesses have reported white lights hovering above people's heads and figures appearing out of the darkness. Ghostly younglings have been witnessed, and electrical disturbances have occurred to devices in the tunnel. People have also felt, sudden drops in temperature. Oh, almost forgot, there is a ghost train hunting the tunnel, because human spirits aren't enough. During a tour group experience, one witness recounted that when they reached the tunnel, he said the entire group noticed a random light in the distance, and the sound of a steam train overwhelming the area. He said that everyone, including the tour guide, scrambled to hug the walls. And now remember, this tunnel has been inactive for almost 50 years at this time. The witness claims he felt the wind on his face as he closed his eyes and the train passed. Want to hear about a ghosty haunting the cemetery near the tunnel? Of course you do. Blanche Moon was a youngling who died in 1886 and haunts the cemetery. She was the daughter of Henry and Fanny Moon, and her father is believed to have been the timber worker who helped make the railway sleepers she fell off of while playing, which is the fall that led to her death. In January of 2010, a family visiting St. Mark's Cemetery snapped a photo apparently showing the ghosts of 2 younglings who died almost 60 years apart. And yep, you guessed it, one of them is believed to be Blanche Moon herself. The family claimed that there were no young people in the cemetery at the time the photo was taken, and that the figures of the 2 were only noticed when the pictures were downloaded to a computer. Other places in Picton rumored to be haunted are the Imperial Hotel, where many staff report the feeling of someone following them through several parts of the building, and at times, the jukebox begins to play, even though it's not connected to power. Wallandilly Shire Hall, which is reported to be haunted by 3 ghosts, including a bearded man wearing a hat and suit, a small mischievous boy, and a little girl, who is most often heard rather than seen. Stone Quarry Viaduct, where over the years many people have drowned in the creek. Locals have heard ghoulish sounds of people swimming and splashing in said creek. And finally, Emmett Cottages, where the ghost of a woman is seen in the window of the building, and shop owners often find their displays have been moved overnight.